Hi there, I'm clinical psychologist Dr. Danny Martinez, and I'm here to talk to you today about Meghan Markel's interview and her experience of racial trauma. So most of us have some concept of what trauma is, what it looks like, and how it feels. Some of you may have even witnessed the deep impact that trauma can have on your physical and mental well-being. But did you know that researchers are starting to uncover the deep connection between racial trauma and mental health? That there is a clear connection between experiences of racism and traumatic responses. Oprah recently interviewed Meghan Markle and Prince Harry to discuss their very public distancing from the British royal family. I actually watched the interview and I thought it was really deep. I was especially captivated by a part of the interview where Meghan discussed the deep loneliness she experienced when she joined Harry's family. That was compounded by the strain she experienced as a new member of the institution that manages the family's duties. Meghan described feeling suddenly disconnected from the world, losing her passport, driver's license, and just a general ability to move around in society. All of this while trying to manage inaccurate media depictions of her in the papers, resolving misunderstandings and conflicts within the family, and the significant tension she was experiencing between her and the institution. All of this added up to the point that the stress that she was feeling was leading her to have active thoughts of ending her life.
I just didn't want to be alive anymore. And that was a very clear and real and frightening constant thought.
Meghan did mention that she didn't want to live anymore. But did you notice that she also mentioned that she was afraid of being left alone for fear that she might end her own life?
I can't be left alone.
Because you were afraid of what you might do to yourself?
This is the difference between a passive suicidal thought and an active suicidal thought. A passive suicidal thought can be something like, I don't want to live anymore, or I wish I didn't wake up tomorrow. It can be a deep and painful thought, but there isn't any imminent action associated with it. An active suicidal thought is like a passive thought, but with a specific intent, or a plan, or means to accomplish the goal of ending your life. It seems pretty clear that Meghan was having active thoughts. Without knowing the specific details of what she was thinking, it sounds like she was afraid to be left alone when she told Harry about those thoughts. Meghan talked about how she and Harry decided to go to an event at the Royal Albert Hall that same day. The same day that she decided to share those deeply profound thoughts with Harry. That she was afraid that she might end her life if she was left alone if Harry decided to go to this event by himself. So what does this have to do with Meghan's race? A significant portion of the interview revolved around Meghan's mixed race background. She was born in Southern California to a black mother and a white father. She talked about how her mixed race background was a reason for significant concern for the British royal family, but more so for the institution. She mentioned numerous times how difficult it was to be the first member of color in the royal family, even after she just started dating Harry. She later went on to talk about one of the main things that weighed her down, which was the concern created by the announcement of her pregnancy, and how their future son, Charlie, would be seen as a member of this family. It turns out, according to Meghan, that the institution decided that Meghan and Harry's child would not be afforded protection, and would be unable to carry a title like Prince or Duke, without clear evidence for why this decision was being made, even though it was this child's birthright. After some more questions, Meghan went on to say that the darkness of her child's skin color was a serious concern for the institution, and that this was for her one of the hardest things to deal with as the fate of her child was being discussed.
He won't be given security. He's not going to be given a title. And also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
Meghan clearly struggled adapting to a lifestyle that very few people have any concept of to begin with. A life of total seclusion, where you enjoy few personal freedoms, where press and media depictions and appearances are everything, even more so than the most famous celebrities who have to endure things like paparazzi and the press. The amount of pressure put on someone that is not raised in that context would be incredible. But we have to give her some credit too. Meghan seemed to accept much of that responsibility, taking on the titles and the assignments, making use of her new platform to fulfill her royal duties, and integrate herself into this new lifestyle that she basically stumbled upon as well as she could. This is already amazing and admirable for someone to do that. But there was that specific stressor that seemed to push Meghan so far that it became impossible for her to sustain the pressure of her new position in the royal family, her race, and the race of her unborn child. We know from research that racial trauma is real, that it deeply impacts our mental health and overall well-being. For those who experience stressors in their daily living as a result of their race, this can lead to chronic stress, anxiety, depression, as well as all the symptoms that we associate with PTSD. We now know that the consistent barrage of all the natural stressors that we experience in life, including all the incredible stressors that Meghan stepped into in this new position in her life, in addition to the factor of race in her experience, can have such a deep impact on her mental health that even someone in a position as lofty as hers can think about ending her life. The consistent feeling that you are not safe, when you are totally vulnerable and have few personal freedoms, can be especially damaging. Meghan mentioned at one point that she reached out for help. In her suffering, she actually decided to say something about it, only to find that the institution denied her request for mental health support because it might be seen as not good for the institution itself.
I went to the institution and I said that I needed to go somewhere to get help, and I was told that I couldn't, that it wouldn't be good for the institution.
Adding to that, the reasonable belief that she may have had that she was being treated a certain way because of her race, and you have an incredibly vulnerable person who could be pushed to their limits and consider ending their life to find relief from the pain, suffering, and loneliness she was experiencing. Meghan didn't say these things specifically, but I would suspect that someone who is under that amount of chronic stress is constantly vigilant of their surroundings and who's around them, not knowing who to trust, constantly concerned for your own well-being, not knowing if others will assist her if she really needs help, are all signs of post-traumatic stress disorder. And that person would likely take measures to change their circumstances. On one hand, you have the prospect of ending your life, while on the other hand, you consider this ally, this unconditionally supportive person in your life. In this case, Harry, who is there at the right time and is able to help you find enough hope that you decide that your well-being and the well-being of your family is something you might try to work out. So you remove yourself from that situation and try to find space to heal. We know that racial trauma can affect people of many backgrounds, but we actually know that it's experienced in an especially powerful way by Black women in America. I personally believe that Meghan was incredibly brave to speak up, not just because of the repercussions that might come from the very powerful British royal family, but because historically, women of color who speak of their trauma are not believed, are not taken seriously, or have their concerns minimized.
I share this because there's so many people who are afraid to voice that they need help. And I know personally how hard it is to not just voice it, but when you voice it, to be told no.
We are reminded now that racial trauma can be severe and can push someone to their limits. If you are someone who's experienced racial trauma, reach out for help from a trusted family member or friend who might be willing to hear your story. If you have a hard time finding someone in your circle that may be able to support you, please reach out for professional help. If you haven't experienced racial trauma, you can be an ally by being a good listener, by being willing to witness someone's story if they're willing to share it with you, and to use your platform to amplify the voices of those who have been impacted by racial trauma in their lives.